Hi everyone. If you're new, my name is Sayan. I'm the project coordinator for the Zero Waste Highrise project. Really appreciate you guys tuning in today and being part of this ongoing series. If it's your first time tuning into one of these sessions, I'll just give a quick overview about T. Toronto Environmental Alliance, known as T, we're a local environmental nonprofit working for a greener city for all since 1988. And we work on a range of issues from waste reduction, air quality, climate change, and advocate for policies that protect the environment. One of T's main ways for doing this, for inspiring governments and businesses to adopt new policies, is to prove what's possible through showing that in community projects like this one. So over the last 2.5 years in this project, what we've done is it's called the Zero Waste Highrise project, and we've worked closely with over 15 buildings all across the city in documenting their strategies for reducing waste. Now we're sharing everything that we've learned as part of a new online program for the project. So the goal is to guide more buildings in replicating all the successes we've seen. And so the online program consists of a step-by-step pathway of activities, tools, success stories, and learning events like this one to guide you in taking action in your building. And if you just recently joined the project and want to know more about how it works, be sure to check out the recording of the info session about this pathway that we just shared in the chat. The project is funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, which is an agency of the Government of Ontario, and it's in partnership with U of T, who helps us evaluate the successes of the buildings we work with. We also have funding from SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, for this research aspect of our work. All right, so this is the third peer learning session we're hosting as part of the online program. And the goal of these sessions is for you to hear directly from your peers, other residents and staff in leading zero waste buildings, and learn how they've achieved waste reduction. Each session, we look at a key tactic for waste reduction and spotlight a building who's exemplary at using that tactic. Today, our focus is on how to communicate about waste in your building and how positive messaging can motivate resident participation. I'm going to start by doing a quick overview of some basic waste communications that every building can do. Then we'll look at examples of waste communications from our Spotlight building, Perth Ave Co-op, and we'll be joined by Vera, who is a member of the Green Committee at Perth Ave, and we'll have a conversation with her on Perth's approach, and in particular, Vera will share her perspective on incorporating positive messaging into communications. In the end, we'll have some time to answer questions from the audience. All right, so what is waste communication? The core purpose of waste communications is to clarify for residents what the sorting rules are. Waste sorting is confusing. There's just so many different types of packaging out now with different rules. So everybody, including me, needs clarifications and frequent reminders of what these rules are. Clarifying these rules is especially important in multi-residential buildings because rules can differ from building to building depending on who's collecting the waste. So it's important for buildings to clearly communicate this. Of course, just stating the rules once isn't enough. Information needs to be repeated frequently for the benefit of both old and new residents. And beyond providing clarity, communication can also help provide motivation for residents to take part in the full range of your zero waste options. So communications can share direct feedback with residents on why the community cares about waste reduction and what the specific areas the community is looking to improve on are, which can empower residents by making them feel more connected to this larger community goal. So how can we provide this clarity about the rules? Some buildings use notices, but it's really important beyond notices to have clear posters and signs everywhere in the building. And this is what allows residents to have the information they need to feel confident that they know what they're doing. For example, a great practice is even if your chute room has only a single chute for garbage, it can have posters like in this photo reminding residents what belongs in recycling and organics and where in the building residents can take these materials. It's also important that the bins in your waste area have clear signage or stickers with pictures on it, communicating clearly what belongs in these bins. It's important not to assume that just the color of these bins will communicate what goes there, because some jurisdictions that your residents might be coming from, garbage bins are green or even blue. So the building in this photo made a custom banner that hangs over its recycling and organics bins that communicates useful tips. Other areas in your building, like the laundry room, entrances to your building, entrances from the parking garage, community rooms, should also have clear signage reminding residents of the sorting rules of relevant waste in those areas. So for example, on the left is a poster about sorting laundry room specific waste. And this is posted right above a recycling bin and garbage bin in the building's laundry room. And on the right is a photo from our Spotlight building today. They have signage like this throughout their building. And this one is near their main entrance, the main foyer, reminding residents that disposable coffee cups go in the garbage, not recycling. So like the photos in these examples, good signage should have minimal text, have color, and should show examples using pictures. It's also important to refresh your signs so that they always look fresh and clean so that residents can feel confident that the signs represent up-to-date rules. You should be able to order posters and signs from your waste service provider for free, or you can develop custom signs yourself. But not everyone's going to read signs, so it is important to communicate using many different channels to reach all the residents in your building. For example, sending a message by email may allow residents with a screen reader or translation tool to better understand the message. Paper notices may be more effective for residents who like to digest the information at their home or post it up in their unit. Community social media groups are another great way to reach residents. And when it's safe to do so again, in-person communication, for example, a lobby display, is a great way to personalize the message and put faces on how much the community cares. In planning out your waste communications, consider what channels are already used by staff and residents in your building, and look at ways of using them for waste communications. So we've created an online resource with tips to help you think through this and enhance waste communication in your building. And we've shared the link in the chat. So Perth Ave Co-op is our Spotlight building today. Perth Ave is an 8-story building with 102 units in the west end of Toronto near the Junction area. They have a single chute for garbage with recycling and organics bins outside, as well as a special and hazardous waste area. The waste reduction efforts in this building are led by their Green Committee in close collaboration with staff and management. Perth Co-op has measured a reduction in garbage bin pickups and an increase in recycling this year. And the Green Committee's focus has been promoting waste reduction through positively framed communications. I'm going to show you some examples of what this looks like, and then we'll discuss with Vera, who's on Perth's Green Committee, about their approach. Everywhere you go in Perth Ave Co-op, you can feel the Green Committee's presence with friendly signs about proper sorting. So they have a designated whiteboard in the main lobby for Green Committee messaging. This board is updated routinely to keep the message fresh with tips of the month. And right beside it, they also have sorting literature from the city in different languages that residents can take home. All the bins have stickers with pictures that make it clear what does belong there and what doesn't. And these stickers are provided for free from the city for buildings with city waste service. If you have private waste service, you can get equivalent type of stickers from your private waste provider. And for the posters that the Green Committee designs themselves, they take extra care to frame messages in a positive way. Just like all buildings, though, there is contamination in the recycling at Perth Co-op. There is recycling and organics that gets placed into the garbage. But instead of focusing on these individual mistakes, the Green Committee frames its message around solutions and goals. So this year, they've been running a campaign called the Less the Landfill Challenge. As part of this campaign, the Green Committee tracks the garbage costs of the buildings in posters they've put up in the lobby, and these posters communicate garbage costs in 2020 compared to previous years and challenge residents to help the building hit a garbage reduction goal. Throughout the year, they put out friendly and fun educational posters with tips on how the buildings can reduce garbage. For example, this poster flattening cardboard so that there's more room in the recycling bins. And because of this consistent encouragement and communication, the building has succeeded in reducing garbage and increasing recycling, so much so that this summer, the existing recycling bins started to overflow. The building acted swiftly to purchase an additional blue bin so that there is enough room for this new increased recycling. So this poster on the left was designed to celebrate and welcome the new blue bin. All right, so why don't we meet Vera and get to hear directly from her how all this stuff developed.
Everyone.
Hey, Vera, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, so to get started, Vera, I was wondering if you could share how long have you been part of the Green Committee at Perth Ave, and what made you get involved?
Yeah, so we moved into the Perth Co-op about just over 2 years ago. And I've been on the committee for a little bit over a year. It's part of the cooperative model and our building's mandate to really get residents involved, to contribute, to take ownership of different tasks and projects and improvements in the co-op, and then of course to meet people and build communities. So I was keen to get involved. The finance committee seemed full at the time, and because I like numbers, and I thought I could contribute my skills there. But it ended up working out really nicely because I also really care about the environment, and I was motivated to join a really small committee and help them advance some of the waste reduction goals. So that's the story of how this came about.
Awesome, cool. Well, yeah, I'm glad. Selfishly, I'm glad the Finance Committee was full because you've done some really great work with your green team. So just earlier, we saw a few photos of the posters in your building, and you designed many of these posters, and I know you take special care to, make sure that they have a friendly and positive tone. We'll go more into the specifics of those posters in a bit, but I was wondering, what does positive messaging mean to you, and why do you think it's so important for waste communication?
Yeah, I maybe just to give a bit of context, in my day job, I work on social impact issues and human rights, and a big part of my role is to get people to buy into things that are ultimately good for us and human rights and progress. But at the same time, it's not always easy because that takes a lot of work. And in that role, managing projects like these, I found that I can really get people behind an idea and really feeling positive and achieving positive outcomes if they feel good about it, if they feel like it's something that they own. So they have increased ownership, and they feel positive about it rather than kind of negatively framing and focusing on the problematics more so than the solutions. So I've really, and there's also quite a lot of research on the topic, and there are some recent studies where they, for example, try to use positive and negative messaging to get people to be active, especially seniors. And for example, one of those recent research studies found that it was an overwhelming difference when messaging was positioned to seniors about being active and being physically active compared to when it was kind of given a little bit more in a negative framing. So I think that applies across the board to a lot of our experiences. Most of us don't feel, we don't enjoy being reprimanded. I think it also kind of connects to feelings of kind of a bit of resistance to authority. And I think in our daily lives, we have so many obligations and things we like to do and don't like to do. So when it comes to these additional kind of values and activities we do every day, like recycling, it doesn't work to keep having people tell you you're doing this wrong, this is not great, this is you're doing badly, because it also could cause a bit of resistance. So in my experience, I've just found that you can get through to people more, get them on your side, and have them really own the process, and achieve those positive outcomes with positive messaging, compared to the more kind of precaution type of messaging, which oftentimes can be found when you see lots of bulletins in your building, that don't do this, you can't do that. So that's why I personally have felt it's important for us to shift the language, and the rest of the committee members have been on board as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And so just to make sure I'm following, so like in the context like that example with motivating seniors to do physical activity, what does like negative messaging versus positive messaging look like? I guess negative messaging is more like finger pointy, or what's the difference?
Yeah, so I think negatively phrased messages can oftentimes use even verbs or the configuration or the usage of the verb in a way where it's pointing out that something cannot be done. So don't do this, you can't do that, stop doing, stop acting. So that in itself, you know, we're bombarded with messages like that draw limitations in daily lives. And when we use that same type of messaging, again, it could create a bit of that feeling, as you say, as people are pointing fingers at you, and you in fact feel defensive almost, and therefore not so open to the idea, especially if it's a new idea. It requires additional work from you and additional effort. And maybe you're not that educated on the topic. So if somebody on top of it is pointing a finger at you, you're gonna close up. So whereas the positive messaging is more of an invitation. So you're really trying to say, you know, this is an opportunity, this is an invitation to try to get to affect people, to be motivated to care, and yeah, to, you know, greet them a little bit with open arms. And not everybody, this will not resonate with everybody equally, but I've just found it's much more effective than the don'ts type of messaging.
Gotcha. So being careful not to use words, verbs, framings that could evoke a defensiveness, and then that leads to resistance to even like listening to that message. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And so I guess, you know, well, what do you do then if, you know, in your building, you're noticing that there's like the same type of mistake being made with regards to, you know, sorting? Maybe, you know, you've put out notices saying, hey, like, don't put coffee cups in the recycling, but you still see tons of coffee cups going into the blue bins. What does, like, how would you use, what's your view on how to communicate with residents to try to address this without evoking that defensiveness?
Yeah, so I think for us and our team, it's been a bit of a focus to think how to still position the point you want to get across. So not, you know, you have to respect people and give them the information directly. I think it's not about shying away from acknowledging that there's maybe a missed opportunity or underperformance. So you acknowledge that, and I think most people appreciate that. So you focus on covering that aspect, and then really then you spend most of the time on what can we do about it. So it's about positioning the conversation as a solution rather than so much focusing on the negative. And if you're focusing on the negative for 90% of the time, but then you say, oh, and then we have to do something about it for 10% of the time, you're missing out on the creativity and people's engagement to come up with those solutions. But if you flip that and you say, okay, just position the current status quo. So let's say we are not sorting properly, we're having lots of contamination. So you say, this continues to be a challenge for a building now, and you move on to the solution. What can we do about it? And that is where also people begin to open up. If you spend a lot of time and a lot of that negative language, people will also get tired. They don't want to think about always and taking stock of what they're doing wrongly. I think most people would rather be invited in a conversation to say like, well, what do you think? What should we do about that? People like to provide their opinion, and I think many of them would like to be asked. So I think for our green committee too, we're like, okay, this is what management is telling us. This is still a problem. Now let's spend 90% of our meeting thinking about what we could do to raise awareness and change things up. So I think that kind of a flip in mindset is important.
Gotcha. So it's like you can still address an issue, you can still be direct about, hey, we got a problem here, but instead of, you know, a memo being like 3/4 of the content just saying what's wrong and why that's bad, you know, it's maybe one line, and then the focus of the message is, but this is what we're going to do together to like solve this. This is what we can do. These are the tools you could use, and inviting people to be part of a solution, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even in the written communication, in spoken, postering, that could be applied. So instead of, you know, if you have a poster notice you want to write, don't write 3 paragraphs of how everything is bad, you know, that people will probably stop reading after a while. as they're standing in the elevator, going home, or, you know, doing laundry. So maybe try to position, okay, this is the state of things, and now these are the options we have on hand. I think people are much more drawn to something that feels like they could, with their behavior, contribute positively to change, rather than reading something that where they, as you say, feel a bit reprimanded.
Gotcha. So in your building, you guys make really good use of all the free resources, stickers, posters, signs that the city provides. But then beyond that, you also, you know, develop and design custom posters that you guys create yourself for specific messages. Can you share a bit about like what's your process on how to decide, you know, what to put out there, what message to focus on?
Yeah, so normally we, during our Green Committee meetings, and I have to be honest, it's a small committee. It's also a pretty new committee. It's only 4 members, and 2 of us are new, maybe about just over a year. So it's a small team, and we've got lots of things we want to improve, but we do try to meet frequently, and even during the pandemic, we've tried to meet on Zoom to not let everything be on pause. So postering and things like that have definitely continued to be on our agenda. So normally we will connect, discuss during the meeting, you know, what is management saying? What do we need to work on? What are some educational campaigns we want to raise to the members? You know, we also have some things in the backlog, like we know with hazardous waste, we really want to improve signage. So we've got ideas, and it's a matter of picking one that is priority. So for example, with the pandemic and more people ordering things online, we spotted that there were so many more cardboard boxes in our recycling, and they were taking up all this space because they were not flattened. So we did a little campaign to remind people that they should flatten the boxes. That way the bins don't fill up and we can make use of that space. So we will do that, and depending on urgency, then I draft the initial design, get some feedback normally on the language. And then again, depending on urgency, we get that approved and printed and posted around the building. So it's been interesting. Sometimes staff will provide feedback. You know, we've also heard from residents about some of our postering campaigns. So that's been quite fun.
Awesome. I'm going to actually pull up my slides again just so we could talk through some of these specific posters. I know I flew past them earlier when my slides were up. Sure. So yeah, can you tell me about this effort here?
Yeah, and this is a very analog type of job. We're going to upgrade our thermometers in 2021, but this was also it's a little homemade, and sometimes homemade things could look good. That's one learning that I have, and this has enabled us to go in and, you know, fill in information as it comes, which has been interesting conversation starter. If people come by us in the lobby, they ask, "Oh, what are you doing with that thermometer?" So in a way, it's been nice. But this was just a part of a bigger kind of campaign that we decided on for this year, and before the pandemic started, which was the Lost to Landfill challenge. We knew that part of our challenges were the sorting. So how can we encourage members and educate them so that they can sort properly, and therefore we can divert waste away from the landfill and into the organics and recycling. So we decided that, and the feedback we got from management is that, you know, you got to tell people about how much it's costing us, because as a co-op, you know, there's no real estate management company getting hit with extra, you know, this is a co-op membership. So people, you know, they should care that annual increases in rent is informed by some of these additional costs that we incur. So, you know, normally we were a little resistant in the beginning to kind of present just the money aspect, because the 4 of us there in the Green Committee are there because of the environment. So we thought that, like, oh, the messaging about, you know, diverting away from landfill is great. And in some ways we continue to push that message along. But we thought, you know what, like, management knows people in the building, and, you know, we go to general member meetings, and we know people are concerned about costs. So so we decided to take up this task, and instead of making a kind of a postering campaign that says, oh, we pay so much in extra waste, we thought, let's try to show improvement. So what we started to do is tracking the amount of money that it would cost us every month for the excess waste. And then we put that on a thermometer for 2018 and 19 based on a dollar scale. And then we started to track as we're reducing and diverting more effectively, how much are the costs decreasing. Also, just disclaimer, we did finally get a way to compact our waste better. So that has an improvement in how things are. But, and we were not shy to share that. Membership knows that we're doing that now. But it's still really nice to be able to show where we're at, what was our goal. We're gonna definitely totally exceed our goal in the costs. And I think people hopefully will resonate with our members that this is something that is positive and they should care about.
So just for everyone tuning in, at Vera's building, as well as many of your buildings tuning in, they have city service, and the city only charges for garbage, whereas recycling and organics are free. So the more or the less that the building sends to landfill, which is why they call it the Less to Landfill Challenge, the more the blue bins are getting filled up, the more the green bins are being filled, the less garbage there is, and that's what they're charged for, so it's less costs. So I could see here on like the photo on the right, you guys in the last few years been paying in the ballpark of like $6,500 a year for garbage costs, and your goal was to try to hit just $4,500 in costs, so reduce it by about a quarter. And it looks like this is the September update, so there's 3 more months in the year, but it looks like you guys are gonna hit that goal, eh?
Yeah. Yes.
And what kind of feedback have you guys gotten about this poster? Like you mentioned that people stop you and stop by when you're updating it. Has this created? Do you feel like it's created more awareness in the building between the connection of people's choices and larger impacts in the building and our environment?
Yes, I think so. At least with people that we have had the chance to engage, most people also don't understand the waste cost. So it's given us an idea to explain that in more detail. And that's been quite interesting as a way to continue to educate the residents of our city how waste gets calculated and how excess costs are paid. And then, yeah, we have gotten some questions from members as well about, in general, like the motivation behind this. So it's been quite neat. Most people like to see financial savings, especially when it could impact them directly. So yeah. And then we always try to also say, this is also great for the environment, and but for this particular campaign, I think the goal was like, let's showcase waste cost reduction and see how that resonates with people. And we think it has. Unfortunately, we haven't been out and about and having too many engagements in our lobbies or events because of the pandemic. So we haven't had a chance to talk to many people. But when we first unveiled this in February of last year or January of last year, we were still able to talk to each other close by. And people who would come through our lobby display, they gave us some positive feedback on it.
Nice. I want to take some of our audience questions, but just real quick before then, anything you want to share about your process and your thinking around how you design some of these other posters?
Yeah, one of the posters, yes, so you'll see the box poster. Yes, I see it. So you can see the box poster. That is the one I referred to earlier. I thought it would be interesting to start personifying a little bit more the inanimate objects, and I think that's kind of a fun way to tell a story. So yeah, so I thought let's try some different ways of communicating. So the box is asking to be flattened. I also try to not put too much information. Some of our old notices have paragraphs and paragraphs, and I don't think people read them. So visual to draw people's attention, and then a simple message. And a more kind of positively phrased message if we can. That's been my goal. The bring your own mug challenge. That was our effort to get people to bring a mug to our general member meetings so that we don't use the disposable cups. So that, I think that also had a good, it resonated well. We also gave people rewards when they would bring their own mug. So I think that also incentivized them to think about bringing one down from their apartment.
Nice. Awesome. But yeah, thanks so much for joining. Thank you so much, Vera, for sharing all your great thoughts and perspective. And yeah, stay tuned for future learning opportunities like this.